Welcome to World Update on the Persecuted Church with Release International. In this program, two special reports. Attacks against Christians in Nigeria. The government says hoodlums were to blame, but Release International uncovers evidence that the latest attack, which claimed 50 lives, was planned and highly organized. And the second of our reports from Eritrea, where 1,800 Christians are imprisoned for their faith, sometimes in appalling conditions. Plus the latest news from Pakistan, Indonesia and India. But first, Nigeria, where attacks against Christians are increasing. Tens of thousands have died, the latest following the publication of the Muhammad cartoons in Denmark. A Release International fact-finding team has just returned from the scene of the most recent violence, where the backlash against the cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad claimed 50 lives. This is the first of our special reports. Images of destruction taken soon after the event. 56 churches burnt to the ground in Maiduguri, Borno State. The reason, or excuse, a protest of the Danish Muhammad cartoons. But the mob didn't stop there. They attacked Christian homes and businesses. 50 Christians were slaughtered, many burnt to death, including Reverend Father Michael Jajiri in St. Rita's Church.
And they came to this place wanting to gain entrance into this complete church building, and there was no access because it was locked. They decided to now break through the wall to gain entrance into the church building, where they went in and destroyed everything that is in there, including the Reverend Father, who is in charge of this parish. What they did was, when they came in, they used knife on him, they stabbed him with knife, and hung tires on his neck, got some petrol, poured on him, and light the matches to burn him completely to ashes.
It is a complete mess, isn't it?
Complete mess.
Enoch, as we stand in the middle of all of this destruction,
That's right.
What does it make you feel as a Christian?
Jesus never promised me, that all is going to be that easy. And from the scriptures we know that the Bible tells us that persecution will definitely come. And so even in this thing, we still know that we can still praise our God. The church is in our heart. It's not in this building. So they can destroy the buildings, but we're still there, and the church is there, and we believe strongly. As a result of this, we believe strongly that the church shall come up very strong.
The authorities describe this as the work of hooligans. Yet these hooligans targeted only Christians and churches, burning down 55 others in a matter of hours in what Enoch believes were well-coordinated attacks.
This place is the place identified as the Ramat Square, where the Muslims gathered to protest the state cartoon. Soon after that, when they finished at that same spot, they now dispersed to those locations, as we can see around, where they destroyed the churches.
So these little marks, these numbers, 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
These are destroyed churches.
They are all destroyed churches. It's a carefully orchestrated thing. People that organize it, they know where the targets were. And of course they carried their daggers, they carried their weapons of war, they carried their patrols, which was the major thing that they used, and they moved on.
What did the government do to help you after this?
All our cries fell into deaf ears. Nobody really listened to us, because the police didn't actually come out until after 2 hours, when the destruction was completely executed.
Enoch, can you forgive those who did this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The teachings of Jesus ask us to forgive them. The God we serve teaches us that we should forgive those who persecute us, those who despitefully use us, those who abuse us. We have no reason not to forgive them. The love of Christ gives us the grace to forgive these individuals. And we're praying for them, praying for their salvation and deliverance.
Through its partners in Nigeria, Release International is caring for widows and orphans, repairing houses, and is coming to the aid of Christians who've suffered in the violence.
I belong to Jesus, I belong to my Lord.
Coming up, our special report from Eritrea. But first, other news. Pakistan. Christian head teacher Parvez Masih has been cleared of blasphemy charges and released after 5 years in custody. He was detained in 2001 after Muslim students asked him for his views on Islam and then accused him of blasphemy. He's had to endure 5 years of brutal treatment, threats and beatings. Observers believe the head teacher of a rival school led the campaign to blacken his name. Release International has supported Parvez and his family since his arrest.
This is an extreme case, but it reflects a culture of intolerance towards Christianity. We're seeing Christians in Pakistan being accused under the notorious blasphemy laws, simply to settle scores. If they're found guilty, the law carries the death penalty. If they're acquitted, then extremists often try to kill them anyway. It's a bad law and must be repealed.
Indonesia's Supreme Court has allowed a second appeal for 3 Christians on death row in response to a huge international campaign for their release. Fabianus Tibo, Domingos da Silva and Marinus Riwu were found guilty of inciting violence during sectarian clashes in central Sulawesi. They were due to be executed last month, but they continue to protest their innocence, claiming they were just trying to help unarmed Christians who were under attack. And in India, Hindu militants broke into a Christian home to call a halt to the house group that was meeting there. When the pastor complained to the police, they criticised him for holding the service in the first place. It's the latest in a series of attacks on churches in India. In Mumbai, militants dragged 5 pastors to a temple and tried to force them to worship Hindu gods. When the pastors refused, they were beaten mercilessly. Eritrea. Release International has presented evidence of the persecution of Christians to London's ambassador to Eritrea. This follows a Release fact-finding trip to a refugee camp in Ethiopia. Release spoke to Christians who've been driven from their country. Some 1,800 Christians are detained for their faith in Eritrea, some locked up in shipping containers in the heat of the desert.
I suffered so many times because of my faith.
It's very difficult to know why the government is persecuting Christians. In the Constitution, it says that every citizen is free to worship whatever he likes. But our government is also a Marxist indoctrinated government. They want to break the willpower of these Christians. They want to make them obedient, to submissive. So that's why they beat them. The government is trying everything he can to crack down the religious freedom.
My husband has been in prison in Eritrea for the last year and a half. The government arrested him because he was preaching the gospel. I would like all Christians to pray that my husband is released. I need my husband, and our 3 children need their father. I feel sad and I feel very sorry about the way things are happening in Eritrea, especially the way the government is persecuting Christians.
Really, we have a great burden, and we feel very sad for our friends and family who are suffering inside Eritrea.
I pray for my country. I love it. I love my people. I pray for it always. I pray that God will give us freedom for our beliefs.
We know that the gospel will spread, even though there is persecution and opposition, but people are suffering. And I ask Christians to pray so that the suffering may cease.
The Remember Eritrea DVD highlights the plight of Christians and is available from the Release International website. Release has also launched a petition to the government and an appeal to raise funds to support Christian refugees and their families. That's it from this edition. More news and resources on the Release International website.